It's a letters meeting, and it reminds me of the seventh commandment. The seventh commandment is, you shall not commit adultery. Now, adultery is sleeping with someone you're not married to, okay? or sleeping with someone else's mate, which the world doesn't think a thing about that. And we see it all the time. You know, you can't hardly turn on the television without, you know, all of this garbage. And the seventh commandment hasn't lost its power, because those who are ready to make a home rather than divide a home. Because I don't ever want you to forget this picture, that when there's a divorce, you have two people that Yahweh has joined together, and he says he has made them one, just like he made Adam and Eve one. And when you get a divorce, it's like ripping your heart apart. It's ripping your heart apart, and it's ripping your children's hearts apart. So if I could say one thing to young girls, please be careful and make sure that you know that God told you to marry this man, because you're going to be with him. The vow says you make a vow before an almighty God, the God of the universe, who created all of us, everything. And you make a vow to him and say, till death do us part. It's a long time to death. You know? I mean, when I got married at 20, I really didn't think we'd last this long. I mean, I thought, you know, back then the rapture was coming any minute, and I thought, okay, let me just get married, you know, and then after married, let me just have children, and you know, 47 years. If you had told me, I wouldn't have believed that this world could last so long. And the reason it has is because of good Texas grandmothers. I have to tell you, when I moved to Texas, I loved it here. I've always loved it here. And it's just, I couldn't even think about sending my children to public school when we lived in Delaware. I couldn't even think about it. But here, they both graduated from Abernathy, Texas. And I don't know, probably played a bit of football or something, but it was such a blessing to see some. They had one teacher that wasn't a Christian, and he taught science and tried to teach evolution. And the problem was, you know, he had like all this like black shaggy hair and black shaggy beard, and so the kids all called him caveman. Everybody knew it. It's terrible, you know, these little towns. But Proverbs 14:1. This is how you don't have a divorce. The wise woman builds her house. The foolish tears it down with her own hands. How many of us have seen women that embarrass, emasculate their husbands in public? You know? That's why the older women have to teach the younger women. There's a certain way that he has called us to behave. And you cannot think or act like the world. So may we all be wise The Zion stands for weapon. Okay, I haven't really gone over the meanings of the letters enough, maybe. The Zion is the weapon. And the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they're godly. To the pulling down of strongholds and every mighty thing that would exalt itself against him. Het has a guttural H, okay? So it's an H with an attitude. You have if you don't feel it way down here, you're not saying it right. Okay. So, just pretend like you have a cold, but don't let anybody else know out there. All right. And our word here is hagra. Hagra. She girds her loins with strength and strengthens her arms. Anybody ever, I can't lift a whole lot, so I'm really helpless being able to stand. But, I do know how to lift laundry, and, she strengthens her arms. And this word, hagra, for gird, it means to wrap around, okay? So she strengthens herself. And so, for this last one, I wanted to go through the hug. Is for those of us who have been doing the festivals of Yahweh. If you read in Leviticus 23, he tells us what his feasts are. These are my feasts, he says, feasts of Yahweh. So the first one is Pesach. There are three, so this is a menorah, for those who don't know. This is the way that they lit the inner sanctuary in the temple. So you had seven, hold on a second. So you have three on this side, and three on this side, and then one in the middle. And so the three on this side are all considered Pesach, even though they're individual. So Pesach was, remember, when God delivered the Israelites out of Egypt, because they had the blood of the lamb on the doorposts. They weren't delivered by their good works. They were delivered by the blood of the Lamb. So Pesach. And the next day after Pesach is when they wrapped up their dough and their stuff, and they took off out of Egypt. Because finally Pharaoh said, okay, get out of here. And so this is unleavened bread. And this is the picture of how Yeshua was the perfect sacrifice, the perfect leaven is a picture of sin in the Bible, so unleavened bread. And then first fruits. And so sometime within that week of Pesach, of unleavened bread they ate for 7 days. So what that meant was you couldn't eat anything with leaven in it. And we do this once a year, and it's really, really good for you physically to do this. Because, if you eat too much bread and you get yeast and candida and all this. So if you do the unleavened bread once a year, then this helps you out with that. So sometime during this week would be first fruits. And so the year that Yeshua died on Passover, he died at the exact moment on Passover that the Passover lamb died for Israel. And 3 o'clock in the afternoon is when he died. It said it is finished. And then he was buried, unleavened bread, on an unleavened bread. And then the first day of the week was first fruits. And this is, it was when they would bring the first of their grain, but Yeshua was the first fruits, and just like he arose from the dead, so we will too. And then after 50 days, then you have Shavuot, or Pentecost, as Christians call it. And then we have, in the fall, we have 3 feasts together. And you have the Day of Trumpet Blast, which the Jews now call Rosh Hashanah. And it isn't actually the Jewish New Year, according to the Bible. According to the Bible, it is, the month of Passover. And then 10 days later, we have the Day of Atonement, with once a year, the high priest would go in, and he would go into the Holy of Holies, and he would offer the blood for the atonement of Israel. And then Sukkot, so on the 15th was Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. And so I have it in yellow because these 3 in fall feasts are known as Sukkot. And the 3 spring feasts are all known as Pesach. And then the one in the middle is Shavuot. And so there are just all kinds of designs for the 7. And are there any questions anyone has? Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your, I appreciate, first of all, you coming, and I appreciate your attention. And may you be blessed.